Clarence Page is a Chicago Tribune columnist, and he starts off the discussions tonight. You know, you look at these numbers, Clarence, and you and I have been through this a few rounds, and I have to tell you, here's the new Quinnipiac Florida poll. 57% disapproval of the president's job performance, 39% approval. 39, that's below 40. This is the worst score of any state the Quinnipiac's been looking at. You got to wonder about it getting that low. The poll also shows that 53% of Florida voters say President Obama does not deserve to be reelected. That's kind of a punch.
Oh, yeah. And we know, though, that Florida has taken it on the chin for years because of the housing market in particular. Their economy.
All those empty condos.
Absolutely.
Thousands of them.
It's just been devastating down there for them. And, people take out their rage on the president. That's not news. What he's got to do is show that he cares, that he's doing something to try to help the situation.
And I'm looking at all the factors. Florida's great because it's almost like the falling Chads go down there. You got people of every accent, Southern accent, New York accents, all kinds of people live down there.
Oh, yeah.
South Florida's retirement land. Middle Florida's youth land and economic development land. You got dairy down there. You got everything.
That's right.
And the question is, what is turning that vote? Is it the retirees' fear about the market going down? Is that it? Today's news?
That's got to be part of it. The market, their real estate, the 401ks. There's the Social Security debate, which we could talk about. But there is, it was interesting, Chris. You remember back in 2008, Obama's team discovered a pocket of potential votes down by Naples. And they discovered that while they were fighting it out with Hillary Clinton during the primaries. They approached that area and they turned it. It had gone for Bush 4 years earlier. It went for Obama this time.
That's pretty well off.
Pretty well off, exactly, and heavy with retirees.
Waspy, too.
Around Naples, south.
I know that area.
Yeah, there's no sun,
there's no breeze down there, but it's very waspy. For
I know it too. My 80-year-old uncle lives down there. Not a wasp, but definitely a retiree.
I was generalizing it for us.
But he's surrounded by people down there who are turned against Obama now because he's the president.
And they're looking at. I think a lot of people look at these numbers about the market, and they're looking at what they have saved. And how much they've saved, say, in the last 10 years after their kids have all gone to school. And if they're empty nesters, they got enough money to save. And then they see it dwindling.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about these issues affecting them down there. Let's talk about the issue of the Social Security. You've got tonight Rick Perry coming on television, probably once again having to defend his charge that it's a Ponzi scheme. Mm-hmm. It looks to me like Mitt Romney has a plan. Bite onto his ankle and don't leave go.
And you can't blame him. Rick Perry is untested outside Texas. And what's the first thing most of the country learned about him? That he thinks Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Now, he's not the first Republican to call it a Ponzi scheme, but certainly the first one to run for office with that being the first thing the public knows about him. And you're talking about Florida.
And he called it unconstitutional, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Saying unconstitutional from the very beginning. He wants to refight the fight that went on in the 1930s.
Okay, let's shift gears right now. Stay with us, Clarence. Matt Kibbe's president of Freedom Works. I want to show some, by the way, Matt, thanks for joining us as always. I want to show some poll numbers among Florida voters. Quinnipiac has Rick Perry out in front with 31%. Mitt Romney in the Republican fight down at 22. So it's 31-22 among the leaders. The rest of the field, single digits. The head-to-head matchups with President Obama are fascinating. Mitt Romney beats the president rather handily, 47-40. And by the way, he's making a big pickup there. He is running well ahead of the president now and gaining on him. And in a matchup between Rick Perry and the president, it's also a statistical tie. So even Rick Perry's doing quite well down there against the president. But there is a 9-point swing with Romney ahead by 7, Perry down by 2. Let me ask you, among people with strong views about President Obama, is electability and defeating the president a key issue, or is it a peripheral issue?
Well, I think electability matters a lot because none of this matters unless you actually win and put a Republican in the White House.
So when Mitt Romney, here's Mitt Romney, by the way, making that point. He's playing up his electability last night. Let's listen.
I'm going to be a Republican candidate who can win. And I say that with significance. To beat the president, it's never easy to beat an incumbent. The best thing I can do to help Republicans is to run a good race as a president. And to make sure, by the way, that we get independents and women voters.
You know, Matt, I don't know you that well, but I've always thanked you for coming on the show and respect your strong views. And clearly the question is gut, perhaps, versus calculation. People that have strong views about this president and don't really like him being in the White House, period. It may be all kinds of factors involved, but they really want him out of that White House deeply. Will that drive them to pick someone who may not share their deep feelings about the president? In other words, pick somebody who doesn't want him out as much as they do, but will get him out.
Well, the problem with Mitt Romney is that his argument about electability is only about an inch deep. And I think every Tea Party believes that good policy is good politics. And if we find a candidate that can both run a national campaign and be a credible candidate, but stands for something, stands for a set of values that really resonate with not just Tea Partiers, but independents, people that are worried about the economy, people that believe that the government's gotten too big and is in the way of recovery and job creation, I think you got to find both of those things if you want to beat President Obama.
Is there an under the table kind of worry that you pick a Romney who talks your talk because he wants to get the nomination, and somewhere down towards November he begins to move to the center, and somewhere after he gets elected president, begin to watch somebody become sort of the first George Bush, much more establishment than you are in your heart? Are you afraid of that?
Well, I think that's exactly what happened with John McCain, and it's exactly what happened with Bob Dole. But I'm not sure that Mitt Romney's actually talking the Tea Party talk. Is certainly not like the other candidates are, certainly not on Romney care. And health care and the individual mandate is such a core value for Tea Partiers. I think he's got a real problem.
Well, isn't that a central issue then? I'm trying to read you on this. He was for in Massachusetts exactly what you're against in the government, in Obama. You don't like what he did? It's the same thing Obama did. He required individuals to buy health insurance basically on government fiat.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that we are interested in electability, but we don't necessarily believe that Mitt Romney is the electable one, because we think, again, that good policy is good politics, and actually taking a stand on some of these big economic issues, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable, this is something that's going to resonate with independent voters that don't vote on a partisan basis. They vote based on whether or not they think you're an authentic guy that believes something and will do something.
That's what I think, by the way. Let's go to Rick Perry right now. He took a shot at Mitt Romney last night. Let's listen to that shot, and maybe it's along the lines you're talking here.
We don't need to nominate Obama light. We don't need to nominate someone who's going to blur the lines between President Obama and our nominee. When you take a look at what Mitt did from the standpoint of Romney care in Massachusetts, you're going to have a hard time finding a difference between Obamacare and Romney care.
Obama light. You know, somebody's doing good jobs of coming up with those slogans. I used to do it. I think it's a great piece of work there. Obama light stings, doesn't it?
Certainly on Romney care. And you got to know that the first debate between Mitt Romney, should he get the nomination, and President Obama will preemptively thank him for the idea of the individual mandate. And that undermines one of the Republicans' most potent arguments against the president.
You mean right in the debate, if they get to debate 3 or 4 times in the fall, if it's Romney versus Obama, Obama will just kiss him on the cheek in the first debate for giving him the idea, and that will undermine his whole challenge.
Absolutely. And that's why I think a lot of Republican voters, a lot of Tea Partiers, a lot of independents are looking for someone to fill that vacuum that Mitt Romney has created by essentially being the establishment's front runner. And maybe that's Rick Perry. Maybe it's somebody else. I think the whole process is more decentralized, so maybe we don't know who it is yet.
Yeah, that's very cute and teasing, Matt. But here we are, September. The Iowa caucuses are coming. You're smiling. You got about 3 months. For somebody to come in now, well, tell me how anybody could come in. Just give me a scenario. Who might come in that would tickle your fancy more than Perry, a Tea Partier?
Well, let's assume that there is this vacuum, and in politics, vacuums are filled, and that Rick Perry doesn't rise to the occasion. Then somebody like a Chris Christie, and I know that you think that he's not running, or like a Marco Rubio, or like even a Paul Ryan, somebody will step up. And what's different today than the old days is that it's easier for someone to run the same kind of guerrilla campaign that Barack Obama ran against Hillary Clinton, raise a bunch of small dollar donations across America online if they have that credible brand, that authenticity with the American people.
I think you're talking with your heart, Matt, but let me go back to Clarence Page here. Clarence, I mean, you've studied campaign cycles a long time, and how does somebody get in this race at this point? I mean, Chris Christie's the one that everybody whispers about, and as Matt's correctly said, I don't think he's getting in now because I think he would have done it. But you've got to put together a team that's going to win in Iowa. You got to be ready to slingshot yourself all the way to New Hampshire. You got to have some plan for South Carolina. And a guy like Chris Christie, who's a northerner who may look like a northerner to those Southerners, has to figure out how he gets all the way through that South and still survive.
It's hard to remember anybody since Dwight Eisenhower in '52 who came in this late or later than this.
Well, he came in like March of the election year.
Yeah, but he could do that because he had that kind of popularity already. There was a very different era. Thank you. A very different era. But look at Rudy Giuliani. He decided, well, I'll wait until Florida to get in. And he was dead by then politically. It just didn't get anywhere. It's hard to imagine anybody coming in this late. But this is an unusual year. Perry is a strong front runner because, of the very first day he got in, he was at 27 points, whereas Romney was around 17, 18. So it's possible, but not likely.
It looks to me like Rick Perry still has some work to do with the Tea Party people. It looks like he's got some work to do with our guest tonight, Matt Kibbe. He'll probably be calling you soon and saying, how do I win you over, sir? Anyway, Matt Kibbe, thank you. A man of the Tea Party who has still not been moved. The earth hasn't moved for him yet with Rick Perry, as Hemingway would say.